Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And in this case, you get both, an individual and an organization making a difference and powering the good for sure. We're joined by Dwight Johnson. He's the executive director of Preston Taylor Ministries. How are you doing, Dwight?
Hey, I'm doing good, Jeremy. How are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you are doing good personally, professionally, organizationally, everything. But before we dive into Preston Taylor Ministries, give us a little bit of your personal story and your background and what led you to Preston Taylor Ministries.
Yeah, so I'm originally from North Mississippi, and I've been in Nashville since 2012. And I went to college knowing that I wanted to work with teenagers, work with youth in some capacity, and thought it was going to be education. Started that track, started taking like assessment courses, and that turned out to be a no-go for me. I was like, I'm not going to be that kind of teacher. And so started just venturing out into different ways of how can I plug back into the community? How can I be a part of solutions? And started volunteering while I was in Mississippi, got hired part-time at a couple of organizations while I was in Mississippi, and then received an opportunity to continue my education through a program based out of here in Nashville. And I was placed as an intern as a part of that program at Preston Taylor. And the rest is history. I took off running and didn't look back, and still here. It'll be almost 10 years later in July.
Nice. And obviously with what you do now, you work heavily with youth and being able to mold them and put them on the path to fulfill their dreams. There's a lot to what you do, but give us a little bit of the mission and the purpose for Preston Taylor Ministries.
Yeah, so the mission of PTM is kind of three-tier, right? So we're helping kids discover their God-inspired dreams. So what are some of the things that, and I think we get into a mode where we want to ask kids what they want to do when they grow up. But I'm getting into a rhythm and I'm encouraging our staff to get into a rhythm of asking them, what do you want to do this week to change the world? What do you want to do today to change the world? How do you want to impact your community tomorrow? Because when we put like these big longevity sentences around what you want to do when you grow up, it kind of inspires this, I can't really do anything until I grow up. And so what we're really trying to do here is we're trying to change the narrative. You're a world changer today. And so how is God inspiring you today to be a world changer, to be a cultural shifter, if you will, to be an influencer in the giftings that you have? And so that's the first tier, discovering God-inspired dreams. The next one, joy-filled friendships. So it's all about trying to figure out who is in my community, who are the people that I'm circling around that can inspire and encourage me to be the best version of myself possible. Who can encourage me when I'm not feeling the best? Who can I encourage when they're not feeling the best, right? Like, how can these relationships be reciprocal? And so we're teaching kids that relationships aren't just one-sided, but they involve multiple people to show up being as best of themselves as they can be, knowing that some days are going to be better than others, right? So just this idea of community and relational building. And then the last piece is discovering a love for learning. And so one of the things that we really focus on, we do academic support, we do after school tutoring in our programs, but also there's so many other ways to learn. So learning through exposure, learning through experiences, learning through people, learning through experiential spaces. And so how can we bring opportunities to our kids, and how can we point kids in the direction of opportunities that are teaching them that's not just the classroom? The classroom's integral, so it's an important space, but I believe that a part of the gifting and identity that we have as an organization is we get to say, here is this space that allows you to reinforce what you learn in this space. So for example, like running a STEM program here. So we have people here that are reinforcing what they're doing in the classroom on paper, but they're using their hands and they're using different problem solving tools and things of that nature. So our heart and our mission is we really want students and families to feel empowered in their own journey. And we want to make sure that we are a great leverager of those resources and opportunities. We don't say that we are the people that are changing anything. We just say that we're placeholders. We say that we are partners with the kingdom of God. We say that we're partners with the community and with parents who are vision casting for their kids. And then we just say, okay, we want to help you get there. So we have these spaces, but also you tell us, how can we be best servants to you all? So it's kind of growing into this space of everyone has to jump in and everyone has to be a part.
You mentioned the after school programs, you have summer programs, you have sport programs. Mentorship, though, plays a key role in what you do. Talk about the mentorship side.
Yeah, so we really encourage this mentorship aspect of relational building. And I mean, it probably doesn't fall short on anybody's ears that when we look back on our lives, right? When we look back at some of the most important spaces of our lives, when we look back on some of the biggest decisions of our lives, some of the hardest times of our lives, we are able to pinpoint one person at least that we can say, you know what, this person was beneficial in helping me really process and think about how to maneuver through this season of difficulty, right? And so for us, we want kids to have a person that they see every single week, the same person. And the idea and the hope is, so we are a K-12 organization. So the big goal is that we grab kids as young as we can, and we walk through them through their entire scholastic post-secondary career, and even some in college. I still have students that I keep up with that are, in college, some that have graduated, some that have graduated from grad school, not to talk about my age or anything, but it is fun though when kids are reflecting on their senior year. We have a senior banquet every year, and we invite mentors that have helped shape them along the way, and families, volunteers, all those things. And one of the things that stands out to me every single time a student shares during that banquet is they point to their mentor. They say, this individual really was integral and important in helping me understand both who I am, understanding how I'm connected to community, understanding how I'm connected to the kingdom of God, and understanding my purpose. This person every week was reminding me, and even when I didn't want to show up, right? Like as a student, even when I wasn't my best self, this person stood in the gap. This person was consistent. This person was intentional. And so mentorship just really becomes almost like the glue, if you will, to all of the other pieces that we do. We're able to bring mentors in a capacity that they can even help shape, like if a student is struggling in school, we can bring in parents, family, and mentors, because we believe that it takes a village. I just honestly believe that not that there is not just one person that's responsible for the well-being of a child, that it has to be a group of intentional people, and mentors just becomes that integral space for us.
One of the other pieces is servant leadership, and you have a program in place, SALT, that focuses on that. Talk about the servant leadership side of what you're doing and that sort of training.
Yeah, so SALT is for our high school students, and what we try to instill in that program is today, right now, in this moment, no matter how smart you may think you are, no matter how, no matter what you think about yourself, you are a leader. You've been called to lead. You've been called into a space to help inform and to shape rooms and to shape spaces. And so the servant and leadership training is really a weekly gathering of high schoolers, and they're getting an opportunity to engage in life skills training. So we're talking about everything from time management to conflict resolution. We're talking about careers. We're talking about, we're doing assessments, and we're doing different type of, personality things to kind of help kids understand how they're wired, how they're gifted, and how that plays a part into them determining, what it is they may be called to do. We bring in different professionals. We bring in different people to lead different trainings. We've had organizations like Uprise come and do different trainings around trade school opportunities because we want students to understand that college isn't the only path. It is a path, but you might be wired and might be geared and might be gifted to go into trade school, do 2 years, come out, and do something in that realm. You might be an entrepreneur. So you might have ideas, or at least you are really good in the ideation space of determining a problem in the world and how you can help solve it. And so we want to encourage any dream that our high schoolers have. We want to encourage it during this time. And so we are intentional about the people that are in that space. Terrence French, our high school director, does an incredible job of building one-on-one relationships with those students and their families. And they're always in constant communication about, here's some of the things that are going on in my life, right? Because when we're vision casting, we have to be aware of what's happening in the present. We can't think about tomorrow without considering today. And so we have to create these spaces where kids can come, and honestly, some of those nights are just roundtable discussions about what's going on. How are you? There's so much happening in the world. How are you dealing with that? How are you coping with that? How are you talking about that? Do you have a space? And so we try to create those spaces for them during that time, because it all plays a part into who they are becoming, how they're dreaming, how they're looking at their future. And so SALT becomes that really, really important space for us to be able to do that every week.
There's definitely always something going on in your world. When you talk about everything you're doing with Preston Taylor Ministries, it covers a lot, because as you're alluding to, it's like between servant leadership, roundtable discussions, devotions, dinners, breakfasts, after school, summer sports, like summer programs, sports programs throughout the year. Like, you have something going on all the time, which is awesome. But you also have opportunities for the public to come in and see what you're doing and be engaged, and all the volunteer opportunities as well. Talk about some of the different events and ways that we can engage. One of them is a Lunch and Learn April 29th. Talk about some of the different events and ways we can start plugging in.
Awesome. Yeah. So we have two pretty big events coming up. As you mentioned, April 29th is our Lunch and Learn event. And that's just an opportunity for people to come into our space, to be able to hear from staff, to be able to hear about each of the programs that we offer. And then just being able to, help design. Because one of the things about volunteering is that it's really easy for us to just say, here are our needs, and we want all these needs to be met, which is true. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. That's very true. But I think one of the things that we try to do here is we actually try to align people with the appropriate program. And so we're actually asking them questions around, what are some of the things that you enjoy? Do you like small kids, or do you like teenagers? Some people are, intimidated by teenagers, while some people are intimidated by young people, like by little kids. So, we really are intentional about asking those questions so that we plug people into the most appropriate and aligned space for them to hopefully produce longevity, right? So we want people to come and volunteer. And we want them to have an experience just as much as we want our kids and staff to have one, because God is speaking to all of us in the same space. The question is, what is God saying to me? What is God saying to you, and etc. And so coming up on April 29th, yes, is our Lunch and Learn. You'll get an opportunity to hear about all the programs that we offer. You'll get to hear from staff. You'll get to hear from me. You'll get a tour of the space that one of the spaces that we operate in. We are one of about 7 sites that we have in the Northwest corridor of Nashville. But so we'll meet here for that. We'll provide lunch and just have some conversation. So that one is going to be a little bit more informative and a little bit more kind of that one-on-one kind of contact and communication. And then on April 5th, we have our Overcomers Luncheon that will be held at West End Community Church over off of White Bridge Road. It's our first Overcomers Luncheon since in 2 years since the pandemic. Last year, we did more of a mailer type of fundraiser. So we're really excited to have that event back in person. And that event is catered, it's in the title, Overcoming, right? So, we really believe that everyone in that room is an overcomer in some capacity. PTM is an organization that believes in the messaging and the power of overcoming obstacles. And so we actually have a former student, Aubrey Randall, that's he was going to be in person, but he's in the Air Force. And so, as you all know, being on contract with the military means that they have your time. So he had to kind of switch his itinerary at the last minute, as he's on an assigned training, but he's going to join us via video and Zoom, and he's going to share about his experience at PTM, and he's going to talk about some of the ways that he's overcome through relationships here, and that'll be an opportunity for people to also just hear stories. It'll be opportunities for people that are looking to give. That is a fundraiser, so there'll be an opportunity for people to give into our mission, into our organization, and so into the lives of these kids. So those are two of the major events that we have kind of coming down the pipeline here in the next couple of weeks.
So obviously you touched on the volunteerism, that side, events and opportunities to plug in. Financial contributions obviously play an important role for what you're doing. Talk about some of the different ways throughout the year that we can help you lift.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we have, like I said, this Overcomers Luncheon. That's a great touch point. We'll do a golf tournament in October. So if there's any golfers out there that enjoys golfing, we'll have a golf tournament that'll help fundraise for the operational and mission objectives of PTM. In July, in the late summer, we'll have an event called Picking and Grinning. The title's actually still being in the works, but Picking and Grinning. So it's just kind of combining comedy and music. So we'll have different people out for that. So we'll have more information about that event coming up here pretty soon. And then one of probably our biggest fundraiser is our Christmas tree pickup fundraiser. So in December, towards the end of December, staff and students, we have this big operation where we are literally all over Nashville, all over Davidson County, Rutherford, Wilson. We take our vehicles here on site. We have volunteers that volunteer their vehicles and their time and their resources. Last year, we picked up about over 700 Christmas trees that helps us. And that money goes to help fund our PTM-wide retreat that we're actually getting ready for in the next couple of weeks as well. And so that fundraiser helps to fund a weekend retreat for 3rd through 12th graders. And we have about probably around 90 to 100 people that participate in that retreat. So that's probably one of our biggest operations. And then the last place is just individual giving. So if you just, if you're listening to this and you're like, yo, I want to give, you can go to PrestonTaylorMinistries.org. There's a big yellow donate sign on our website that you can give at any time in any capacity. So those are some of the things that we have coming up in ways that people can give financially.
Give me one more thing that you wish everyone knew about Preston Taylor Ministries.
Yeah, man, it's good. I think the biggest thing for me, Jeremy, is we are an organization that is about connectedness, right? So we know that mentorship is important. We know that having a space to build community is important, but they can't operate in isolation. There has to be an intentional missional lane created between these components. So whether it's in the community aspect where students are in small groups or in communities, whether it is a field trip, whether it's, an experience or exposure to something completely out of their comfort zone, whether it is exposure to the gospel of Jesus Christ, we believe that message changed lives. We believe that Christ is the great reconciler, and we want students and families to know him. We want them to build their relationships with him and through us, but then outside of us, right? So we want them to harness that for themselves. But all of those things are working together to build resilient young men and women. And so we believe in creating intentional ways for all of these spaces to come together. And when you look at PTM, it's very easy to say, it's easy for us to get stuck in kind of this like after school, aftercare programming kind of title. And that's a part of our identity, but our identity is actually made up of a handful of other things that are all coming together and working together, not in silos, but as one big unit, so that when students are getting to their senior year, when they're getting to that reflective space and we're asking them about their PTM experiences, they're going back and they're pointing at a field trip. They're pointing at a person. They are pointing at a time in after school programming. They are pointing at a college road trip or something of that nature. And they're saying all of these things have came together to help me be on the trajectory that I am. And that's our hope. And so just as people are getting to know PTM for the first time, we just believe that all of those experiences together create something special.
Yeah, absolutely. Wrap up with contact information. So go ahead and mention again, website, social media, where would we go to learn more?
Yeah. So website, www.PrestonTaylorMinistries.org. I know it's really long, but PrestonTaylorMinistries.org. We're on LinkedIn, just under Preston Taylor Ministries. We are on Facebook as Preston Taylor Ministries. And we're on Instagram, you guessed it, as Preston Taylor Ministries. Try not to really reinvent the wheel too much. So you can find out about what we have going on in any of those spheres. All staff information are on those sites as well. And so if you want to reach out to learn more, our staff is ready and available and willing to connect.
Well, Dwight, thank you for everything you and your amazing team are doing. Thank you for coming on the show.
Jeremy, thank you so much for having me. This was so great. Thank you so much.